Thank you guys for hanging out today. My name is Coach Becky, and I joined just about a month ago and like to talk on Tuesdays at Market Close about different psychology topics. I think that they're really helpful as we're growing as traders because psychology is the biggest thing, right? With once you get a trading edge in a system that can hold you back. So for me, I have found that really changed my whole trajectory as a trader when I started putting my energy on psychology. And so that was really powerful as a way to focus my energy on refining my trading process, but not necessarily my technicals anymore. When I focus more on my psychology, I really got good outcomes. So greetings, Blaskies. Thank you guys for popping over here. I appreciate seeing all the names I'm starting to get familiar with on here. So today, you guys can see my screen, right? I'm going to talk about being focused in trading. So the title is perfect. The Focused Trader, Mastering Attention in a Noisy World. And I've been thinking about this topic, and I think it deserves a whole conversation because even if you really have a great trading system and you're locked in to how you want to execute and what it's going to look like for you, our edge really can live in our ability to stay focused in real time with our system, with how we want to execute. Because the market is constantly trying to tempt us to become emotional, to give in to revenge or FOMO or extra energy that's not actually helpful. And so focus can be what can really help us maintain control and be intentional versus impulsive. Focus can be seen as an edge and can separate consistent traders from more impulsive ones. So today I really wanted to dig into how and why it's really beneficial to tune out distractions and stay locked into your trading edge. There is a quote from Paul Tudor Jones: "In trading, you're not paid for activity, you're paid for being right." So you can't always know if you're right, but if you really focus and you execute your system to the absolute best of your ability, that gives you kind of the best opportunity. And so, I just kind of thought this topic would kind of make us have a different thought for a moment about how we're going to try to always show up for our trading system. But as always, with the educational sessions here at Blue Sky, these labs, these are just for educational entertainment purposes, basically here to talk about something that has impacted my trading for the better and the traders that I work with. And so we're going to talk about it today with you all. So why is this the topic today? What's this? So if you think about it, there's constantly a battle for our attention in this world. And I think more so now than there ever has been before in the history of mankind. I mean, there's so many things to look at in life, but also when you're trying to be at your system and trading. Um, Focus is kind of like the flow of trading performance. It's kind of how you execute your system. The market pushes at us really fast, and emotional reactions come really quickly as well. But consistent traders really can stay in a deliberate, focused mode. And so to that end, we want to try and be able to control our reactions and just remember when the candles start printing and the volatility starts at our trading session, how we can stay deliberate in our system instead of reactive. The average adult span apparently in this day and age is 8 seconds from a recent Microsoft study. And so, I mean, we're literally battling an environment that is trying to send us in every which direction and steal our attention constantly. And that can be, alerts on your computer, your phone, your devices, your home, just things that you had in your mind last night. There's a great saying, where your attention goes, performance flows. And I think that is a great point of what you're focused on is where your energy and your attention and things, where your output delivers. But if you're not focused on your system, that's a dangerous clinch point. We live in that world of distraction all the time. And there are certain ways of life that it doesn't really matter. You can be distracted in a lot of things in life and still get by just fine. So have it not impact your life. But trading is not really so much one of those things. So I asked Coach Matt to join me today, and I wanted someone to help me kind of visualize what's going on with all of this world. So what I want us to do is Matt's going to go first, and I'm going to show him a series of charts here in a second. I'm going to show it right now so you can start looking. So what I want you to do, Matt, thank you for joining me. I would love it if so on this top here is the daily chart for the ES. The hourly chart, the 15-minute and the 5-minute. Now, as a little disclosure, obviously this is not Matt's exact setup. This just comes from my chart. It's kind of clean. I kind of just want to give him some base information. In order to have an overview on given this data, how would you approach this day as if you wanted to trade? All these candles are cut off with just before market open yesterday. So they're all in sync with the price action right before market open. So what I'm going to ask Coach Matt to do is give us a few-minute rundown of what he would do if he was coming to his charts. These are the 4 charts he could see. What would he look at first, second, third? What plan would he make going into the session? And the indicators that I have on here is just the 9 EMA is the blue line, and then the volume at the bottom. So it's a pretty clean chart. So Coach Matt, welcome to the stage with me. I will give you the microphone.
It's a wonderful question, Becky, because when you come into the market, what's the first thing you look at on a day in, day out basis? Team, what's the first thing you personally look at on every single favorite time frame, or do you look at the larger time frame? So what's the first chart that we should look at? It's the daily chart. We should always have context for the bigger thing. We might be trading a fractal trend within that bigger picture, but we always need to understand the bigger picture. So if I was coming into yesterday and I'm outside my daily routine because I'm a very specific analytical guy, I like my step by steps. I got a specific daily routine. It starts with check the lay of the land, and in that lay of the land is not to go into the 15-minute chart and see what's going on from an intraday perspective. It's to check the daily and the weekly chart on the NQ, on the ES, on GC. Whatever you're trading, you want to get a look at the lay of the land. What's the trend you're dealing with? What's the patterns you're dealing with? Where are those major levels that you're looking at? And yesterday, there was just so happens to be, we got through Groundhog Day from last Friday, which was a rinse and repeat of the Friday before that. And so you're probably coming into yesterday thinking, okay, that low of yesterday was very equal to the low of a week ago Friday. And so you're looking at that level. So number one, you're looking at the daily chart and you're trying to get the big picture context there. And then you just go down the list. You go to the hourly chart, 15-minute chart down to your execution time frame. And so for me, it's looking at the big picture context on the daily chart. Now, the hourly chart is very important to me because I like to trade in the direction of the hourly chart as a day trader. As a swing trader, I need to trade in the direction of the daily chart. As a day trader, it doesn't always have to be the case because day traders are level to level, but I do prefer to trade in the direction of the 1-hour chart. Now, if you look at that 1-hour time frame, the daily chart is pressing down, coming into support. The 1-hour time frame is mixed at that point, which means I needed to see a breakdown or a breakout to start trending again. So looking at the daily chart gives me concern for the bulls. Looking at the hourly chart tells me what I need to see to get a little bit more confident in the directional nature of the market. Once I have that context in hand, I go down to the 15-minute chart because that is my main time frame. Remember, day traders have 3 time frames. They got the big picture, they got their main time frame, and then they have their execution time frame. I then go down to the 15-minute to really structure on trading those levels and those patterns, and then I look at the 5-minute chart for execution.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, team, let's talk about what Matt did. So when he approached the charts, he thought about what his system is, right? He thought, where do I want to look first? How do I want to correlate this? How do I organize and what my trade system might look like today? What is this time frame telling me? And then what would I look for at the next one? What I heard from him, he was calm, structured. He knew what he was looking for and how he was going to approach it. It sounded to me like he was operating off of a mental checklist that he probably doesn't even think about anymore. Yeah.
I got checklists for daily trade setups. Yeah, I got checklists for it.
I could hear it in your voice. Like you weren't even thinking about it necessarily, but it's a part of your routine already.
I think it's extremely important to get systematic in your process.
Mm-hmm. And emotionally, you seemed pretty neutral.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you're doing time frame analysis, when you're setting up.
After I wrote a bunch of calls yesterday, I got real neutral, real peaceful very quickly. Yeah.
All right, there you go, covering yourself. And then when you would approach setting up a specific trade idea on the 5-minute chart, for you, because I've listened to some of your content, my understanding is you would have very clearly defined risk before you pulled your trigger. Yes.
Yeah, I think, whenever you're doing anything from a checklist perspective and you're getting to the final conclusion of process the trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're going to process the trade on that 5 minute chart or whatever your execution time frame, I know a lot of people here is a 1 minute chart or a 2 minute chart or a 3 minute chart or whatever the case might be. But whatever your execution time frame is, you just don't go to the market and it gets above 11, you're like, buy, or sell, 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 sell. No, you still got to go through the process of correcting that trade.
Yeah.
You have your level. You like your level. Your level is based on not just your 5 minute read, but the context of everything you just did. You looked at the daily chart, the hourly chart, the 5 minute chart. You have confidence at those levels. Well, that's just getting to the point where you like a trade.
Yeah.
Right? You like this being breaking out of this level and you think it's going to go up or whatever the case might be. Well, that's just kind of step one. Identify your entry. Then you identify your stop loss. Then you identify target one and you identify target two. And what I do is then I put in an order that allows me to put both entry, stop loss, and my target order at target two, not target one, into the same transaction all simultaneously. And then I press the button and make the trade.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to throw in some neuroscience today on part of these slides here and there, because when you are trading like Coach Matt is in this situation, he is calm. His brain is calm. His prefrontal cortex is in control, which is not always the case. It's going to fluctuate in our days, but that's the part of the brain that is responsible for higher level cognitive functions, executive functions, planning, decision-making, emotional regulation. And so to stay in that part of your brain's functioning, it's important that you're not multitasking, you're not entertaining unnecessary distractions, but instead you are observing and responding to what your system calls for, what your process calls for, how you choose to execute on your system based on your data. And so you trade in alignment with your plan because you maintain that functional pathway in your brain. If you lose it, it's still a good trade because you managed your risk in that situation. And so you want to always aim to execute from that place of functioning when all your criteria is met and it's within your parameters. And in that way, you can be peaceful and consistent also in your execution. Let's see, is there a question? Otherwise, I will pivot here. Okay. All right. So let's not get in too deep into the entries because I want to offer a spinoff of what Matt just did. So I'm going to offer another perspective on this. Ready for it? This is trader number 2. For the sake of today, I'm not going to say this is always me, but I'm going to pretend this is me today. This is my computer. This is where I got to my system in the morning. Say it's 6 a.m. I overslept a little bit, and I'm just waiting to see what this day has. Okay, so I pull up my daily chart. It's somewhere in here, my hourly, the 15-minute, and the 5-minute, because these are the charts that I look for. And I recently was looking at this guy on YouTube, and he says that I need these 4 extra indicators that I'm not really sure what they do, but he said they were great. So I put them on my chart, and I'm going to try and put them in my system. Now, I know the daily chart is important, so I'm going to have this up here, and I'm going to start there. But really quick, I need to check on this tweet because I feel like this tweet could have an impact on how I judge this daily candle. And then I forgot. I promised I would respond to that email yesterday. And so I'm going to pop over here really quick and just do a super fast email respond. It'll only take a minute, and I still have 20 minutes. So I'm just going to do that email really fast so that I can put it out of my mind. I gotta keep up with my schedule, right? The kids need to be fed. Oh my God, the kids need to be fed. I forgot to tell my husband they're supposed to have eggs. We have to do more protein in their breakfast because it doesn't give them enough energy for their day. My kid has PE today. I'm going to really quick go tell my husband they need eggs for breakfast. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. The kids are going to be fine. I just gave a little snuggle. Now I'm going to definitely focus. So I was on my daily chart. Okay. So it looks like daily is going down. The last one was down. So then probably we're bearish. Let's see what's going on over here. Oh, yep, hourly is bearish. There is support over here. Yeah, we'll have to see. It's kind of in no man land. I don't know. This indicator down here means maybe there's some divergence, but this other indicator says maybe there's not divergence. Oh, God, look at this Instagram post, you guys. That's so funny. I got to respond really quick. I got to tell them that it's a good post. Like, you got to support other Instagram content creators because they need energy. They need to know that they're doing a great job on their Instagram page. I'm just going to really quick do a post over there. Also, I got to do this other post really fast. My kid had the cutest picture yesterday, and I know that when I post my pictures on the day that they do them, the memories pop up. So just super fast. And then I'm going to shut off Instagram. Okay. All right. All right. So I did the hourly chart. I know that we're in no man's land. We're going down. Both look like they might be going down. Okay. My process says I go to the smaller time frame. Oh, I need to look at Forex Factory. Let's check what the news is going to be for today. Oh, yeah, there's definitely news. I need to remember that at 7 a.m. there's news. Okay. So, yep, bearish over here too. Are we bearish? Is there support down here? I need to draw my levels, but the levels are there from yesterday, and these bands will help me. So I don't have to draw my levels because I got these new bands from this indicator I found on the weekend. So then I'm good. All right, so I'm just going to use this level as a soft level because it's already there. And now I'm running out of time. Like it's going to start right away. The chart, like I don't know how I had a half an hour. Now all of a sudden I have 4 minutes. Like what am I going to do? I'm just going to answer this last little quick text from my neighbor. She had a question about something in the neighborhood party tonight. Okay, I really got to focus. The market's going to open in a minute. Here's my 5-minute chart over here. Gosh, I didn't draw my support level. I think we're getting close to support, but we're bearish. So my plan is we're bearish, but we're close to support. Gosh, any game could play. What should I put on my hypothesis? I'm almost out of time. The market's going to open, so I'm just going to take a deep breath and see what the market delivers. We'll see what we can find today, and we're just going to do our best with it. That's my trade plan. I do well on my feet. I'm very instinctual. It's going to be fine. I got some other things done. Maybe I'll just sit back and respond to one more Instagram post before I see what the market delivers today. Okay. That was Trader 2. That was Trader 2's pre-market hypothesis and plan. What do you guys think? Yeah. I I think when you're early and you don't even quite know exactly what to look at, it's easy to look at a lot, right? It's easy to have little alerts pop up and be distracted and hear about a new indicator and want to check it out, but not be able to get rid of your old indicators because you found value in those. And so you're starting to put more information into your system, but then it distracts you from what you should look at. And then when you're not trading, it does come to us that we need to check on our kids and respond to an email and respond to this thing that you see. Those are things that we do throughout our day all the time. But at market open, when you're planning your trade system, dangerous. So what I would say, observe, and please stop your comments and let me know what you guys experienced with that. But there's a lot of information coming at this trader. There's multiple extra screens, extra indicators, so many alerts and noise that when they popped up, she didn't close them. She gave them attention, responded to some, thought about responding to others, even stepped out of her office to deal with something with the kids, which probably, the husband knows the kids need protein. You know what I mean? But you're giving priority, you're spreading, something pops up and you're giving that attention. And then in that situation, if that was my pre-market prep, you're damn right I would have an impulsive entry. I don't feel prepared. That made me anxious just going through the example for you guys, because I think I didn't even have a set idea about where my level was that I wanted to lean on and what my timeframes were leading me towards and how I should operate when it gets to those. And so in that situation, it's going to be a lot easier to break your rules and have an emotional reaction because you're not focused. That trader was very busy, but not focused, checking social media, reacting to the noise. And then potentially there's even some carryover from previous losses. So in that neuroscience response, that's the amygdala is firing like crazy, not the prefrontal cortex. The portion of our brain is the amygdala is responsible for processing emotions. So fear, anxiety, fear of missing out, FOMO. If you're not intentionally managing these emotional responses, these alerts that are pulling you away from what you're trying to do, they can take the stage and override your logic so fast and really quite dangerously. The charts, you can't even see the same things you would see if you had a nice clean chart to look at and draw your levels on and focus and really think critically about what the candle and price action shows you at those levels. And so your perception is not the same. The candles and the size of the charts were exactly the same in the 2 pages, Matt's and mine. But the input and the understanding of that day's setup was very different. I love that, Eric. That's a great tip. Lock your account until you finish your pre-market. That's another great way that Blue Sky helps you protect yourself. Because this is exactly it. This is an example of a very less than ideal pre-market preparation. And so your perception and your logic and your setup of your trade plan is very subpar, to be kind. So I think that this kind of was a way to illustrate to you all the importance of focus when you're trading. I think in this world, it's common and realistic to be distracted, but if you have to figure out certain times where you just can't afford that. You can't afford to let that noise in, and you need to figure out how to take steps in order to tune that out and pare it down. So let's get into how we manage this, because I think if you have it to that extreme of my example, good, please don't. But it's possible. All of those things are alerts that pop up in our life and are, something that wants to pull us away from our price action and our pre-market and our intentionality. So let's try and dial away from the crazy town and get into a specific system and talk about how that can really impact our outcomes. So, what it means to focus deeply. So, focus at its core is selective attention. It's less about trying harder, but it's more about blocking out everything else. The goal is to create a tunnel between you and the market, and just everything else is outside of that tunnel. If you're in a position where you want to put on risk your accounts and your progress and your growth, then you need to be laser focused on that. And so it's not just concentration, it's exclusion. It's knowing where your energy has to be directed and what is not a part of that. Like, I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing on Instagram that is going to change the way that I trade my system. And there's no email that's going to change the way that I trade my system. And when I am trading and executing, someone else is in charge of my kids so that I can put risk on and be able to focus on that, with the goal being to get to a flow state. I don't know how many of you have done any research or heard about flow state, but it's a very interesting concept about really being dialed into what you are doing, full immersion. There's not a friction between perception and action. And so to that point, I want to give this reference and talk about for a moment the book Flow State. And I'm not going to try and pronounce that name because I would not be able to effectively. But this book is, it's really good. And it's about the flow state, which is the mental state of complete immersion and energized focus in an activity, where the person becomes so absorbed that everything else fades away. And so this occurs when the challenges of a task are perfectly balanced with a person's skill level, leading to feelings of actual enjoyment and creativity and deep involvement and focus. Thank you, Makram. I appreciate you. The key characteristics include a loss of self-consciousness, a distorted sense of time, an improved sense of control, making the experience intrinsically rewarding. And so it's, it can sound almost like obsessive, but when you are focusing it and directing it at where you need to execute at a high level, it's incredibly powerful. Essentially, it happens when your skill and your challenge are balanced and locked in. And so that is such a powerful position in which to do something that has inherent and significant risk, such as day trading. So if you can get into that kind of flow state, then it decreases your anxiety. I don't know how many of you have been able to trade from a position of just feeling in flow with the market and what you are seeing in the opportunities, but you can feel just connected and in sync and not overly stressed on it. Again, Bruce Lee, I got a couple of his quotes today because it just was on point with this topic, but concentration is the root of all higher abilities. And I think you can see a similar message from a lot of peak performance athletes or skilled people in their trades, that reaching higher levels is about really just doing what you're doing very well. And the core of that is maintaining critical focus. I think the best traders get to a point where they can operate and execute in flow, and your data that you're receiving and the decisions you're making on it feel connected and logical and within your system, almost on a subconscious level, once you develop and grow into that, which is not at all normal when you're a new trader, but is an area that we can strive to get to. And then those little moments as you're getting better at a trader that you start to feel this, I would say lean into that, because that is like a promised land in terms of how you're executing your trading system that you want to aspire to. And so if you find a day that you just really are in sync with the trade opportunities and you're capitalizing on them really well, like dissect that day after the fact and figure out if there's anything you did differently that you were just really on point with that you could try and replicate moving forward, because that's really a beautiful place to execute from. And it's kind of the goal for traders to always be, I know for myself, I always strive to be in that position when I'm trading, for sure. So just a little bit more on the neuroscience of this, because there's some really interesting facts that can kind of help bring this to like a literal, factual, evidence-based discussion. So the prefrontal cortex is the command center for focus. It handles logic and discipline. So when you're tired or distracted, the blood flow moves away from that area and your emotional impulses take over. It's very interesting that they can actually see this on studies where the brain is firing based on when you're in different states of focus. In fact, Stanford in 2013 had a study that said that people who frequently multitask actually become worse at key mental skills, especially attention, memory, and filtering out irrelevant information than people who focus on one task at a time. So it's just a good example of that people who multitask are more easily distracted, have poor working memory, struggle to filter out irrelevant information, and perform worse on cognitive control tasks. So basically, multitasking feels efficient, but tends to degrade the importance of a mental ability and that you're trying to focus on. And I know I am like a multitasking queen. Like I can't even get through a day without doing 2 or 3 activities at once. But when I'm trading, it does not serve me, and I have learned to have to rein that in. I think women tend to multitask more than men. There was a study on that I didn't put in today because I think it's not too surprising there. So people are better at multitasking to a certain degree, but there's definitely facts that are across human being brains that it just pulls you away from where you ought to focus if you're trying to do a high performance situation. And then this study out of London in 2005 essentially emphasized a broader point that multitaskers make people dumber was their literal conclusions in that study. And it's not because they lose intelligence, but it's because their brains cannot operate at full capacity when they split their attention across different tasks. It showed that when people tried to focus on cognitive tasks while simultaneously switching between emails, messages, other distractions, their measurable intelligence and performance temporarily declined. Even the most intelligent people in these studies had this reaction. And sometimes it was as much as 10 IQ points when they did the measurement studies. And so that was so interesting to me because it was literal, like they could measure it and how when you split it, you performed less. And the IQ drop was comparable to major impairments. And so they would even say, like, when you study brains, different impacts, the study said that performance decline seen during multitasking was similar to the drop from going without sleep for an entire night. That impact to your focus is similar to multitasking. And that it was greater than temporary impairment associated with cannabis use. So multitasking is similar to trading high. Put it in perspective, right? It's going to impair your ability to execute per your system. And so that kind of, for me, definitely reframe multitasking as not a harmless habit, but a state that significantly disrupts your mental functioning, which is, when you really think about the impact of it, it's something to consider. The effect of cognitive overload was not an actual loss of intelligence, as to be clear when they talk about that IQ drop, because it didn't say that multitasking permanently lowers IQ, but it did find and correlate that when the brain is forced to rapidly switch tasks, each switch imposes a cost to you, a cost in intention, in memory retrieval, in decision making, and those costs accumulate under pressure, leading to much poor performance on tasks that require reasoning, concentration, problem solving. So basically, the temporary IQ drop is a temporary collapse in cognitive efficiency. And so I got a little nerded out there for a minute. But basically, there is scientific data that shows that you just can't fit everything into your brain at the same time and still execute at a high level with what you're trying to do when it's something really challenging. Distraction literally makes you a worse trader neurologically. Like it doesn't, you can't power through that. It's not, you don't have a choice over that. It literally factually impairs your ability. Yeah. Same, Jessica. When I read through this, I was like, yeah, I've traded distracted before, and generally it did not go well. I did not manage my trade how I intend to. I did not manage my trade per my literally written out trade system. And this researching for this topic to make sure I covered it well was sort of validating the fact that there's neuroscience behind the importance of maintaining focus so that we can keep our blood flow in our decision-making part of our bodies. So let's learn a little bit more about why it matters specifically to trading. So when you're trading, that has a high correlation of both the technicals and the emotionals. It's pattern recognition, setup recognition, and then your emotional control that you want to maintain while you're executing. Those are both have to be in tandem, a part of your trading system. And focus boosts both accuracy and discipline. When you are focused and intentional, you keep in your mind your trading system, how you want to execute, and what your discipline looks like. Always. That is where your energy is. That is what is flowing out of you because you're keeping it focused there. It's about executing your system without interference, without taking in too much extra data. I mean, I think if you think about it, there was some variation on these stats, but I would say what makes the most sense to me and what I read is that trading is 20% strategy and 80% execution in terms of what you're actually, when you get to your computer, you can have the best trade plan ever, but you have to execute on it, manage your risk, manage your entries and exits, and do it without letting your emotions take over. And that is the key to actually getting the outcome, no matter how good you can plan a trade till the cows come home, right? Focus keeps you aligned with your plan so that you can execute towards your system. And so if focus drops, then you start second guessing your edge and you can start sabotaging yourself, which is, that's the bane of a trader's existence. If you start allowing in extra thoughts and you start self-sabotaging and then you start tilting, right? We talked about that. And so I definitely, on this one, I was thinking about Andrew Erickson's Deliberate Practice. I read that book and it is very good. And there's his research throughout that he put in that in his work. And basically, the whole point of it was that performance mastery requires deep, structured, focused effort. And so that is just the opposite of multitasking. And you don't, like I said, have to be like this 24/7. We all are humans. And so you need to be able to veg out, sit down, respond to the alerts on your phone, talk to your kids, have something in your ear while you're doing a task. Those are part of being a human, but that shouldn't be what you're doing when you're at your charts considering pulling a trade. And so discipline is doing what needs to be done even when distractions are tempting you. You are making the purposeful choice to not get involved with those temptations. And that will get you much more consistent results when you do trade your system that you have studied and worked hard for and fine-tuned over the years without that interference, kind of derailing you a little bit. So if we don't trade focused, right, what happens? Bad things. Cognitive overload when you're looking at 7 different directions and you're not sure which one needs to be the highest priority anymore because you're being pulled in so many ways. And so that sort of distraction and spreading of your attention definitely leads to impulsivity with your trading execution system. It can be said that, big losses often start with a moment of inattention. Usually we have focused attention when we're starting our trade plan. But if you start to not pay enough attention and it's something that you haven't quite dialed in, you're not sure how to manage it, or you're, heaven forbid, leveraging in or adding to your position or starting to emotional tilt, you do definitely need to really focus on your system. You can get into that emotional hijacking super easily. And then that can lead to all of the dangerous habits that we talked about when we talked about tilt, like the revenge, the over trading. Did multitasking causes fatigue because your brain is pulled in so many directions, you can get overwhelmed. And that definitely causes slower reaction time, missed signals. You miss a trade that can really trigger a lot of people. And then you can get into some FOMO and some chasing. So that is really distracting as well. And then it was interesting. There's another study, which I don't know, American Psychology Association who did this research, but it shows that it can take 23 minutes to regain full focus after a single distraction. So if you're really dialed in and you're working on something and you get a heavy distraction that pulls your attention for a period and you have to manage it, to get fully back into the flow of what you were doing on something really important that requires a lot of executive functioning, 23 minutes was what that study showed in terms of regaining your full focus back, which I'm sorry, that's 5 day traders for a scalper at least. You know what I mean? That's a significant amount of time to pull yourself back in and rein yourself into where you ought to be. And it can feel like a lifetime, and it can really be just enough time to really cause a problem in your day. And then if you get into the emotional trades, because you're no longer in that focused mode, that can get random and irregular, and you can get into quite a bit of trouble with chasing impulsivity. So, I mean, you want to make sure that you are trying to avoid all of these. And a core component of a lot of the research on focusing is that if you can keep your brain in that focused energy and blood flow and line of flow, then these are not as common. That period of inattention is really a weak point in your system if you allow it to pull your brain flow. And so I would definitely see what you can do. I mean, sometimes there are distractions we just don't have control over, but any ones that you do, there are some key reasons on this slide of why you got to try and lock that down, you know? So sources of distraction, this one we don't need to spend too much time on because I think it's pretty logical. Patients, people that are around you, different noise, whether it's electronic or literal, your environment, you know, anything that's going on in your home or your heart or your energy, internal, so like stress, fatigue, or sleep, you're bored, you're sitting at your chart staring at it, even though you don't want to take a trade, could make you kind of hunt for something, fear of missing out. Your ego maybe says that you need to lock in a win, even though you don't quite see something. And so then you can start thinking about how you want to post a winning trade or XYZ and then get stuck in different rationales other than just trying to execute a great trade based on your system. And so any of these sources of distraction can feel like rational thinking in the moment. You know what I mean? Like it can be, you know, maybe it's early morning and I let my dog out and he's barking like crazy at some critter in the backyard. Like I have to go and deal with that and get him in. And that seems like something you can't avoid. But you definitely want to try and minimize any of these things as possible during your trading hours, because that's such a clinch point in your trading day that you have to lock it down. You guys, anyone want to put in here what your biggest distraction is? If it's not going up, it's going down mentality. Yeah. What's the hardest for you guys? I think for me, it's like my home. My kids are getting up and eating breakfast. Sometimes I have to literally lock my office door. But I had to work through the alerts on my phone as an early trader. And just now I don't entertain any sort of social media or any extra apps in the morning because those would pull me. They would pull my attention and I did not need to give my attention there. Work. Yes. Okay. So that's a very key point, right? Work and kids. Those are the bigger two I'm seeing coming through here. That's tricky. That's tricky having a boring day job and wanting to be a trader and knowing that your attention is split. Yeah. Kids busting in. Yeah. Getting sucked into the smaller time frame. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not, well, I'm semi full-time as a trader, I suppose, but I have a lot of distractions as well. I certainly don't have peace and quiet always. I think the day job thing is a tricky one because, you know, that pays the mortgage while you're dialing in your trading system. I imagine it pays the rent. But for that, I would say if you know that your most ideal trade time is within, you know, 15 minutes after market opens and within that next 30-minute period, if that is where you find your most succinct opportunities to trade, I would see if you could work your system where you don't take meetings, you don't take phone calls, you go on out of office for that period if it's allowed, and protect it as a sacred time, because anything you can do to say, this is when I want to execute, when I find my most ideal setups and I want to be open for trading as well as I can during this time, change your environment to the best of your ability to lock out the noise. And then, you know, also I get it with the job. So hang in there if that's you, but anything you can control to tune out the distractions, honestly, the more you can tune out, even 1% better every week is going to have an improvement on your outcomes. So what else can we do, right, to improve our focus? I would definitely say right before you intend to execute, whether that's immediately pre-market or, you know, maybe you're like to let the morning volatility wonk around a little bit. And then you find a setup once you get a little bit of New York session data printed so you can work from that. But pre-market or pre-trading session, you want to do like a mental check-in and kind of set your intention for your day. Like take some deep breaths, write out your plan, keep your focus on what you want to do, how you would find and execute on your trading setups when you see them. And then you can also do what's called a distraction audit. Like this can be done beforehand, like say tonight, maybe this conversation today will inspire you to just think for a moment in your quiet time tonight about what your distractions are in your life when you're trying to trade. And if there is a way that you can start to tune them out. I think a real day job is one of the more tricky ones, as are kids, because those are things that we have to keep alive, both the children and the job. But do your best to identify, maybe you are getting into social media in the morning or just doing a quick email thing or listening to something that pulls your attention. Can those things get cut? Do you want to try a week without those things in your life? Do you want to, adjust your work schedule so that you're doing a little work early and then taking an hour break during your trading time, if that's something that you can do? Figuring out what your key distractions are when you're trying to execute most commonly, and then how you can adjust those as you can. And then this honestly is not for everyone in your system that you can do, but this 90-minute blocks is very interesting because there are studies on this as well, and it's called the ultradian rhythm cycles. And it's also, again, a scientific thing where when you're trading, you can, about every 90 to 20 minutes, the brain will automatically cycle from high focus and alertness to lower focus and fatigue. It's like maintaining a constant high level of focus is not really sustainable for the natural human brain for extended periods of time, 3, 4, 5 hours. The study held that it's consistently about a 90-minute block that people can stay highly focused and organized and locked into their system. But then your brain fatigues. You're going to take in more distractions. You're going to get tired. You're going to not manage your personal conditions. Yeah, decision fatigue, exactly. And so this is a literal brain cycle rhythm, basic rest activity cycle. It's called BRAC. And so if you can find that you know when your best trades are, try to really get in ahead of time, do a pre-trading cycle, pre-trading session routine to get yourself locked in, and then see if you can get your trade in, set it and forget it if it's a long-term trade, or manage your day trading that moment. But then recognize that it's not going to be sustainable at that level, that high level of focus and attention for the entire trading session. And so you want to acknowledge the fact that your body naturally craves and really kind of needs a 10 to 20 minute break after that high level of functioning. If you can find that you get yourself into that high focus flow state, allow it a break to kind of reset. And so you could take a walk or go get a snack, turn on some music and be in a different room for a few minutes. Allow your body to pull out of that high focus zone so that if you want to get back in it, say you want to trade power hour as well, or see if there's another setup later, you already had a trade, you're at a loss limit to some degree on your charts. That's a great time to allow your brain to have that pause so that it can not get overly fatigued and you get into difficulties with emotional reactions then too from fatigue. And then also some of these are different for everyone. I apparently RQ never sleeps. But in general, sleep and recovery is so critical for high functioning in the brain as well. So allowing your body to have downtime, that way when it's time to be on point, you have the energy to really put your critical attention where you need it to be. And having that energy in your store is valuable to focus a little bit quicker in that situation. He's a mutant. That's okay then. So also environment design, right? So you need to figure out if there's something in your office that is triggering you in the space where you execute. So maybe if you have a lot of alerts up, a little, you have Instagram or Twitter or whatever up on a screen at times when you're just doing busy work or whatever, like I would close those completely, shut them off. Don't allow pings when you're trying to execute your trade. Turn your phone on silent or just have it on something that's helpful for your trading or just off, out of reach, kind of a minimalist setup when you're trying to execute your system. That way, the noise isn't there. It's just something you can change in your immediate environment in order to make you more effective. And so it's just one less thing to have to think about. We take mutants here at Blue Sky. We'll keep RQ. Okay, and then the last one here is mindfulness training. I don't know if you guys have done any of this. I might have to do a session on this on one of these psychology sessions if you guys are interested in it. But mindfulness is something that I first heard about, I think 20 years ago, about just being more present in life and being able to focus on what you are doing, what is in front of you immediately, and it helps with gratitude and focus. And so there are tons of different exercises you can do in order to have a more mindful mind. That keeps you focused on what is directly in front of you instead of kind of monkey mind. And that is something that I have been working on for years in order to lock into, essentially, so that what I am doing gets my full attention and then it almost always goes better. If I'm in a trade and I have a stop and a target and it really is wonking around and starting to push away from me, then that is when I really need to respect the fact that, I can cut a trade before it goes all the way against my stop loss. But if I'm not fully attentive, I might not catch it. And so this mindfulness can be really powerful. Yeah. So that mindfulness can improve cognitive attention as well. So if that's something that you have researched or are into, there's some mindfulness meditations, things that you can do there to help train your body to be more present in your current situation. for sure. I don't know if everyone has read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, but it is excellent for life and for trading as well. But one of his quotes of his that is one of my very favorites that definitely fits today is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Makes sense, right? Like, we can have the biggest goals in the world, but the outcome that is going to happen is our system and how well we focused on it. And so we really need to put the energy on creating the best system we can and then executing it every day. That's gets us to the promised land. So trading is not the only profession that you need high focus, right? And if we reframe it and we think about other traders, oh, thanks, Mikram. Tips. Other career paths that require high focus, and we think about that and then we correlate it to trading. Think about a pilot. They would have to be very focused on checklist and completing it thoroughly every time, not even skipping a beat. There's a very systematic approach to literally flying a plane full of humans in the air over the world, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. That system is extremely precise in what they need to do and everything that needs to be in alignment in order for that plane to take off and land safely. So pilots have to be very focused at critical times in their system and make sure they execute that. Same thing with surgeons, right? Something can change very quickly when you have a body cut open. You have to respond immediately. There can be unexpected complications and chaos. You hit an artery. You need to be really on point with your response in that situation. And so laser focused and calm has to be the way you execute in that situation as well. And then what about a sniper, right? You have to breathe, wait, commit with patience, and then prioritize the exactness of your timing and target identification. These roles have to be exquisitely focused, especially at the key points and the clinch points in their system, such as when we're setting up and executing on our trade. You have to be focused on breathing and what all the variables are that can come at you and what you're going to do with them. Yeah, air traffic controller. Yeah. So day trading is a profession similar to this. It's high stakes, high financial stakes. You want to, in that situation, really think about mastering your focus similarly to these other professions, because trading doesn't have to be a hobby or gambling or a maybe profession. It can be your profession. Like, we can be professional day traders who are funding our most financial abundance, but it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come without taking it very seriously and always being attentive to our checklists and our systems and our execution policies, and then letting it build and get better over time. We can't expect to do any of these roles or being a successful, 7-figure day trader overnight. The education, training, and practice for any of these roles is significant. And that's because it has to be ingrained and taught in practice in order to become, regular in the way you're executing everything. So, building long-term focus habits is the key priority, right? That's what we're talking about. How can we make this a part of who we are long-term so that we can get our best outcomes from this role as a trader? And so we can adjust our routine so that we can train it in and expect it every time. And then that becomes the go-to situation for us. It's a trained habit, not a temporary state. And so if you can be consistent with it as often as possible, put rituals around your system, same trading start time, same prep, same shutdown routine, how you approach your trading day, you figure out what is the most beneficial for you. And then you make sure to never miss that. And then you also weed out and do your audit and you figure out what doesn't help you and you cut that. And so you're fine tuning your routine and your rituals in order to get you the most ideal outcome based on your situation, your style, your time. Make it your own, and if it's your own and it speaks to what you need and what gets you your best outcomes, you're more likely to follow it as well. And so that comes with journaling and figuring out what has served you and what was a part of your day. Maybe you had a really red day where you tilted. Well, think about in processing that entire day, what was your pre-market like also? Because sometimes that's a factor that you want to remember that you could do something about. And so journaling your state of mind as well as your trades. You can rate your focus. Even you can do a rating scale on how focused was I, what distractions did I feel in that pre-market situation, and were those a factor? Could I have done something differently? Should I maybe have not traded knowing this was a heavy carryover emotionally? And you can see sometimes that your actual P&L can track with your attention quality if that is something that is really impacting your system. If you have a strong trading system and you are really struggling, see if you can do a deep dive into if there was a cause to that you could have identified sooner. I would say that focus is a skill, and that if you measure it and you constantly assess whether or not you're doing it well, then you can work to fine tune it, because it's not something that is naturally just an outcome. I think, if anything, we in this current modern age are unfocused and not skilled at that. And so that's something that we need to work on. Say you want to be super strong. Well, you're not going to get super strong by buying the dumbbells and leaving them in the corner of your room. You're going to get strong by buying the dumbbells, using them, buying a larger weight size when you're ready to level up, and then pushing it harder, getting stronger, putting forth energy. Bruce Lee is so good on this. He was my favorite. And Eric, yes, this video is recorded and will be posted on YouTube tomorrow. It'll be linked in the Discord. That way you can find it, share it with a friend, rewatch it. Maybe there's tips in here that were helpful for you. I would love that. Thanks for asking. Of course, Bruce Lee, right? A successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. And that's why I really think that. I think that if you are in trading and you are still in trading and you're here at this class live with me, it's because you're kind of dedicated, right? You have found a skill here and you want to push for it. And so then maybe you are an average man, but you can dial in your system and your focus and your attention and go to the activities that really can make you better. And by just doing your best each day and giving yourself grace on the days where you fumble it, if you could just strive for 1% better over the course of weeks to months, it changes you. It changes who you are at your charts. It changes who you are as a person. It changes the outcomes that you get. And so it doesn't have to be an immediate outcome, but if it's a general shift on your focus, that's really powerful. And I definitely support nonprofits, but I also support all of us pushing to profitability. And so I think these conversations are helpful for that. So I'm about to round it out here, but a couple more little things. Focus. I like this point. Focus is risk management, right? Focus is control, because if you're focused on your system and what you need to see and what it would look like to get in or out of a trade, then you're going to be in control. You're going to have control over your body and what you're going to do. You can't control the market, right? But you can control the quality of your attention and what you're going to do with your trading time. So when you stay dialed in, your actions will stay in alignment with your edge in that situation. So then you can build consistency because you're dialed in, you're focused, you're attentive, you're doing what you need to do when that happens. And so this is kind of like if you think about in the beginning when Matt and I both reviewed the same day's pre-market. One of us was very focused and one of us was very distracted. And I feel like I would not have had as good of an outcome that day because I was all over the place and I was not focused on exactly what the charts were doing and which level I was waiting for response from and which trade direction I wanted to trade to. I was so distracted that when the market was about to open, despite being in my office for 30 minutes during that time, I still was just open to receive. Maybe we're going long, maybe we're going short. Let's just see what happens at these dynamic indicators that are brand new to me. It was a very different situation on what that could look like. And so trying to focus on what serves you and what doesn't, and then leaning into what will serve you, it's a way to protect your system. Distraction is randomness, right? And so if we can focus on our system every day, treat that focus like a capital. That's the capital of your trading, right? To prioritize maintaining your focus so that you can get the better outcomes. It's a good way to think about it, I think. Protecting your focus just as much as your capital. So you guys, anything that distracts you the most that you have thoughts on how you could adjust it? I know it's tricky with keeping the job and the kids alive, but X, yeah. It's important to think about, we're all a little bit different, but what have you found has pulled you out of your focus state? And in that moment, when it pulled you out, did it need to? Did it help your trading? Like maybe Trump tweets you need to know because it actually can impact it. But think about it, where your attention is pulled to when you're in a trade, did that need to happen? And if it didn't, then shut it off. Don't allow that alert to quiet it. So change your notifications in your systems. If it did, then allow it and make sure you factor that into how you're trading, that might happen and what you would do with that information when it comes. But I think each of us giving some time to prioritize ourselves and what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, and to think about how we could focus better intraday, it will have a powerful impact over time. And so I feel like this was a good topic today because there's so much neuroscience around high focus makes us a professional athlete in trading, right? A professional performer. Just like, an Olympian would be, or a surgeon. You guys have any thoughts on this? Any feedback? That's kind of what I got for you today. Thanks, Coach Matt. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really enjoy talking to all things psychology with you all. And this having conversations about trading psychology, especially, it makes me a better trader. Like putting this together and pulling out the facts and like actually getting that information from those studies that I don't think I literally knew, but it just reinforced for me too how I need to behave in the morning, because I am definitely not superhuman and I let distractions in myself as well. So I'm just going to want to definitely keep the focus on locking down as best I can when it's my trading time, for sure. Thanks, guys. All right, I don't see a lot of questions. Any ideas on what we need to any ideas what we should talk about next week, or any questions for me? Amaro is so distracted he doesn't even know what's going on today, but maybe rewatch it.
From a psychology perspective, is there a topic you guys want Becky to work on for either next week or I always find those are great ways to get topics for everybody.
Yeah.
So if you have a topic you want Becky to really kind of focus on, I guarantee Becky's looking for right there.
Mm-hmm. I
am. Like, definitely don't hesitate hitting her up or giving us a thought here in the chat. Secondarily, Becky, if you don't mind me soliciting a little bit on trading topics for the lab, I have a discretional trading, we call that cash flowing in the market. So I can teach you how to do that.
Donation.
Trading lab topic for Thursday. Do we want to do a session on daily and weekly routines? That topic kind of got me interested just based on what Becky was talking about. Or do we want to do a back testing entry stop loss, take a trading day, talk about where the legitimate entries, legitimate stops would be? Let me know there, A or B. I'm personally a B. That's where I would be, but just wanted to throw it out to everybody.
Those are both great topics.
Get me up on that as well. My lab will be Thursday, right after the market. Well, Becky, this was fantastic today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really love putting these topics together. Actually, it's grown on me, and I like the research and the delivery. So thank you, everyone, for hanging with me today. Definitely you want to catch Coach Matt's lab on Thursday at market close. I appreciate you all. You can hit me up on Discord too. Even within the chats, you can ping me with an idea if you think about it later. And all three coaches here, Riz, Matt, and I will keep bringing you the best of what we got to kind of help us all evolve together. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. And Coach Matt, special thank you to you for being my focus trader today. It was excellent.
I like being your game.
I appreciate it. You had very little intro, so it's perfect.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care. Happy trading.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.